everybody, Keith Brown, Tack Room Devotional. It's Monday. We're ready to start a new series, but we're really not starting a new series because we're kind of continuing with the resurrection. Now, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the resurrection. Last week, we talked about what happened right after the resurrection when Jesus was seen by several people. This week, I want to take it a step further because the resurrection is still speaking today to you and I. It's still in operation, and I want to show you that this week. Look with me in John chapter 10, verse 10. Let's start there. It says, "The thief does not come but to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly." Now, as a cutting horse man, when I go to a cutting, the first thing I do, or before I show, as they're settling the herd, I'm studying cattle. I'm trying to figure out which one of those cows, actually I need to pick out three, which of those cows are going to work my horse the best. So you watch them and you watch them, you think this one's just, like, let's say, for instance, I have a really, really good horse. I want something that's going to challenge my horse a little bit more. If I have a young horse, or if I have a horse that has a weakness on the right side or the left side, I want to try and cut something that's a little softer. Well, you pick these cows out, and all of a sudden you go out there and you cut that cow out and you drop your hand, and the cow makes about one or two moves and just runs over top of you. That sucker just lied to you. Kind of like Satan here. He's there to still kill and destroy. Now that cow, that's not its purpose, but that's what it did to you. Well, Satan's purpose is to still kill and destroy from you. But Jesus said, "I have come that they may have life, life more abundantly." If we look at, let's look at John chapter 11. John chapter 11 and verse 25. This is when Lazarus died, and Martha comes to Jesus first and says, "If you'd have been here, he'd have lived." And Jesus said to her in verse 23, "Your brother will rise again." And Martha says to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." But watch what Jesus says. "I am the resurrection and the life." He's not just the resurrection, he's not just the life, he's the resurrection and the life. "He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe this? That's the key. Do you believe this? Jesus is the resurrection and the life. He not only gives us resurrection, he also gives us life. Now, the thing of it is the resurrection, many of us think of the resurrection just as being raised from the dead, but there's more to the resurrection than that. When we look at Jesus last week, we found out that a lot of people didn't even recognize him. Why didn't they recognize him? How was it that Jesus, who had been with them for 3 years, they didn't recognize him? They didn't know who he was. Well, last week I said something which could be partially true and partially not true. So I want to correct myself, and yet, again, it could have something to do with it, because I talked about the fact that Jesus was beat up and in the tomb for 3 days, and some of that could have been why they didn't recognize him. But having thought about it this week, wait a minute, they were there when he was beat up. I mean, the first person to run into the tomb was Mary, and later on she saw Jesus, and she was there and saw him beat up. So if she saw him beat up, when he showed up again, she'd have recognized him beat up and know it was him just by the mere fact that he's so beaten so bad. So I thought about that, and I'm not so sure that's why they didn't recognize him. So I started digging and tried to find out, well then, why didn't they recognize him? Well, I want to show you why they didn't recognize him, okay? Go with me to verse 40. Jesus said to her, did I not say to you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God?" Now here's the key. I believe why they didn't recognize him. Because Jesus had been glorified. His body was a glorified body. He was glorified, and there were some things that changed. Well, let's just pick this up again tomorrow, because if I get started, I'm afraid I'll go a little too long. But I want you to focus on the glory this week, okay? Because like I said at the beginning, the glory will transform. Hey, I'm Keith Brown. This is Tack Room Devotional. Jesus loves you. I love you. I pray that God would richly bless you as you diligently seek him and serve him.